Hello and welcome into another edition of State of the Sun Devils alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. Territorial Cup men's basketball game coming up this Saturday after a big win against Colorado, 70-68. ASU went down into Boulder and knocked off the Fighting Buffaloes, the 0-8 Buffaloes, I should say, now 0-9. But first, let's get into some football stuff because it's list season, guys. You know what list season means?
Stuff to talk about.
It's actually it's interesting because ASU has never been on these lists since I've been paying attention to ASU athletics. But now the football team is good, and they have good players.
They're saying
good returning players, and some players going off to the draft that are included on some of these lists. Let's start with the main one, and Sam Leavitt. Sam Leavitt was great in his redshirt freshman season after transferring in from Michigan State, as everyone knows. He is ranked number one on On3's QB rankings of returning quarterbacks for the 2025-26 season, Damon.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I would say. So a lot of hype, Jesse, around an ASU quarterback. We've seen that before. Can Sam Leavitt deliver with the pressure on him coming into next season?
I believe he can because they aren't making any changes. The issue with Jaden Daniels was that they made changes to the system and what they were running going into his second season, and it just wasn't the same for him at ASU in his second and third seasons at ASU. So I think Sam Leavitt having that continuity is going to help him be the same type of player again, I don't even think he'll be the same type of player. I think he's going to be better. I think, again, as I've said, this is going to be his last year at Arizona State. He will be in the NFL draft in 2026.
There's been some talk even around Sam Leavitt as a possible number one pick going next year in the 2026 draft. So, I mean, if he can live up to that expectation, ASU has a very good season ahead of them. Obviously, they have to play up to expectations, and we've talked about that before on this podcast, guys, that, last year, no one expected them to get to the place where they were. Now, there's expectations, and how do they handle those expectations, Damon?
Yeah, he's got a big hill to climb in terms of probably the prohibitive favorite to be the number one pick is probably Arch Manning. I think we could all agree. At this point, it looks like that is how it's going to be for now. Obviously, a season to go. We haven't seen Arch Manning play a season. We saw Sam play a season, and he looked pretty good in the season that he played. Obviously, hit different points in the season where he kind of leveled up his game. We kind of looked at that first bye week where coming back into the Kansas game, he looked much better starting then, and then coming back from the injury, looked much better starting then, and kind of took it to another level in the postseason with how he was scrambling to find the right passing lanes. I think he's got all the tools, obviously, with the combination of passing and running. But not only that, the work ethic that we've continued to hear about, I feel like that can really shine when you have a full off season, especially with Marcus Arroyo sticking around and with so much of this offense sticking around, obviously Jordan Tyson being a big part of that. I think that he's got all the chances in the world to come into this season looking like a very, very good NFL quarterback.
Yeah, and as far as him going at the top pick, I could see Arch Manning coming back for another year after this next year, just because, number one, he doesn't need the money because he's a Manning. They have plenty of money.
And he has a lot of sponsorships and NIL deals that we've heard about that are very lucrative, it seems.
So, yeah, I mean, I think just with, you always want to be more experienced going into the NFL rather than less experienced. I mean, you look at Jaden Daniels this year, you look at what Bo Nix did, and they were both really seasoned quarterbacks at the college level that came into the NFL and were, really good right away. And I think you at least want to have like 2 seasons of starting under your belt. And I think that Arch Manning could come back, which could lead Sam to being that first pick because he will have those 2 years of starting under his belt.
And like you mentioned, Jeremy, with the endorsements, I just looked it up. Arch Manning has a $6.6 million valuation on On3, which is more than double Sam's $3 million valuation that he has on On3. So, yeah, obviously factors to consider.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other list that Sam Leavitt was a part of was the overall player rankings of returning players for next college football season. He's the number 2 overall on the On3 list, right behind Jeremiah Smith, who, by the way, going to be a sophomore, true sophomore next season.
Not even eligible for the draft.
Correct.
Yeah, but I think that with Jeremiah Smith, he's a receiver and Sam's a quarterback. So don't you think that quarterbacks should be, they're the most valuable player on the team? And I think that Jeremiah Smith being one is a kind of...
He made the play that won his team the national championship.
That is true. that is true. But
this also isn't an MVP list. It's a top 10 players list.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. But
so what does that mean to you, though, Damon? Does that mean what does that mean? Like impactful? That just
you take Jeremiah Smith off of Ohio State. I still think they're pretty good. You take Sam Leavitt off of ASU, and they're winning 6 games.
Well, yeah. So in that respect, he was number 1 on their impact quarterback rankings.
He should be number 1 on their impact player rankings over a receiver.
I don't think they're doing who's the most valuable to their team, though. I think it's just like unguardable, who's toughest for the defense to play against, or obviously for defense, who's toughest for offenses to game plan around. I think that Jeremiah Smith is one of the best college players that I've ever seen in my life, and so I am not going to have any qualms with Sam Leavitt being behind him.
I do think I am glad that Sam was placed above Drew Aller. I've seen better stuff out of Sam than I have out of Drew Aller.
Really interested to see DJ Lagway down at Florida.
Yeah, DJ Lagway at
he's
Florida,
very good.
Yeah, he looked really good.
He's the number 3 quarterback on that top 10 quarterbacks list. DJ Lagway, and then Manning is 4th.
We know about Lagway's deep ball as well. It's ridiculous.
It's quite good. They have. I think Florida's going to be sneaky good this year coming up. I think that they did make a good decision keeping Billy Napier around. I think that they just need to be a little bit more patient with him. But DJ Lagway, yeah, really good. Right up there, I think, with Sam and Arch and Drew Aller.
Now over to the wide receivers, top 10 list of wide receivers. This is from 247 Sports. It's got Jeremiah Smith at 1, which
fair.
Understandable. Ryan Williams at 2, which fair. 2 guys that were 17 years old to start the 2024 season.
And Biletnikoff finalists, both of them, right?
So both those guys are incredible. But at number 3 is ASU's very own Jordan Tyson. That's pretty cool. You got a top 1 returning quarterback and a top 3 returning wide receiver. And that's something that we had discussed toward the end of this season when even in our post-game podcast after the Peach Bowl, guys, a lot of continuity there with, obviously the number 1 target for this offense and the number 1 quarterback. So to have those guys, you would think ASU is bound to have a very good season coming up.
Yeah, so
on paper.
One point that comes to mind for me is we're kind of into NFL draft season. One of the biggest things we hear about NFL draft season is level of competition and how, like, for example, the SEC, positions are just ridiculous compared to other conferences. And one that comes to mind specifically is the defensive backfields in the SEC. And Jordan Tyson's not going to have to deal with that. I mean, he is for one game when they go to Mississippi State, and even that is on the lower end of the SEC secondaries probably. And so I think Jordan Tyson...
I don't know what's going to be harder for him to deal with, the secondary or those cowbells.
Yeah, the cowbells for me are what makes it tough.
I'm so surprised those cowbells didn't make their way over into Tempe.
Yeah. I think I think they might just be respectful to their
pretty cool.
opponents, which is cool. Yeah.
Anyway, Jordan Tyson.
Yeah, Tyson, we talked about him having like 50% of the receiving totals for ASU last season. I think he has a chance to do similar, but obviously it's a much deeper wide receiver room this year. Coming in, it looks like, I think, over a dozen wide receivers for now. Obviously, that could change after the spring transfer portal window. But, Tyson has as good a chance as anyone just because of that chemistry he's developed with Sam.
I think that Jordan Tyson's going to have a monster season, even with the deeper receiver room this year, just because of he's going to have, he's had the full year with Sam now. It took them 3 or 4 games to kind of really get into the groove of okay, he's the number one receiver. I think it was kind of the Kansas game that we were really like, okay, Jordan's the number one receiver. I think this year, from the start, NAU game, he's going to go for 8 catches, 120 yards, a touchdown, something like that.
A Teteroa McMillan game, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Go in there and just have an amazing game to start the season and keep that rolling. And, as I said, I think after the Peach Bowl, Tyson, if they had him, I don't know how far ASU would have gone, but I think they would have beaten Texas, and I think that they might have been able to even win the semifinal game. None of those teams
against Ohio State.
Really, Ohio State was really good, but I don't think there was one team that was just exceptional this last season. I said it right the third time.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, and to your point though about the deeper receiving room, guys, that's just going to open up spots for Jordan Tyson to not get doubled and to safety shading over to the other side sometimes. So we'll see what happens.
And quick question for the group: is Will Howard returning? Do we know?
I have no idea, but
I'm on it.
Because we know Ryan Williams isn't going to get his quarterback back from last season.
Yeah.
Which might be a help to him.
Could Tyson be the only one in this top 3 with a returning quarterback?
I believe Will Howard is going to the draft. I don't think he has much eligibility left. But yeah, that helps.
Yeah, I'm seeing stories about him being an NFL draft fit for teams.
Well, there we go. And so, that chemistry that Sam and Jordan have built, we've seen them courtside at the Suns game, obviously. And, I think they might do
sitting
that
next to each other at the ASU
that's right, yeah.
game against Iowa State that the football team was at.
Where Sam was cradling that trophy like a baby. It was wonderful.
Yep.
I think technically Howard could play one more year.
He's going to the draft. I
know, but I'm just letting you know that technically I think he could play one more year.
Cam McCormick style?
Yeah. But yeah, I think your point is valid though, because with guys that you could look into that, but the talent of those two other guys are they're spectacular, and we saw it on full display with Jeremiah Smith in the college football playoff.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
Sure.
I'm still worried about the spring transfer portal window.
For who?
Just anybody.
For Tyson?
For anybody on the team. I'm always worried about it. I'll never not be worried about the transfer portal windows for ASU because I just...
Based on what?
Just based on the fact that I just know
it's
that there's...
based on paranoia?
I know that
ASU does ASU things
always
sometimes?
something universal.
I know that there are schools that have more money as far as NIL goes.
It's not just NIL though. Like... We talked about this a bit this morning.
I understand that it's not just NIL, but it's still...
No, I mean money-wise. Like, there's going to be the revenue sharing, and ASU plans to be competitive in that.
Sure.
And I understand that, but I'm still just hesitant always with any player because it could just change in an instant. And
okay.
He brings up a good point, and I think that's a good segue into our next topic, Damon.
Yeah, it is. But I will stake my claim here that I am not worried at all about Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson leaving ASU at the very least.
1%.
Not even 1%.
You don't have a 1% worry about any player.
Well, those two specifically, not worried at all.
But I'm saying, every single college football player, I have at least a 1% worry that they are going to leave their school
in the spring window.
In the spring window, or after the season, because it's such a changing landscape.
Here we go.
I can't think of any starter that would even think about it. On ASU,
you never know.
Okay,
you're right. Things can obviously change, but
I'm just saying that in this new era of college football,
it's also a new era of ASU football.
I understand that, but in this new era of college football, I think there is always a door open for anyone at any school to leave. And no matter how good the team is, no matter how much chemistry there is, I just think that it's a weird time.
And that's a good segue into our next topic. Josh Amura is now he's now taking a job here at ASU as an overseer of recruiting and player personnel. Was at Washington with Jed Fish, recently at Arizona with him. So now he's coming in and going to do some stuff with ASU. What is this move for Arizona State mean to you, Damon? What do you think it means?
I think the biggest thing is that it just hammers home some of the pipelines, so to speak, that ASU has tried to hit in recruiting. The Poly pipeline, of course, and he brings more of that because he's got Hawaii ties as well. Obviously, the Arizona ties from when he was in Tucson with Fish. Fish did a great job of recruiting Arizona during that stint. And so I think that it's very good. I mean, ASU continues to modernize itself under Dillingham in a way that it just didn't with Herm Edwards and Ray Anderson. It feels like a general manager type of role. I don't know if we've heard that title quite yet with ASU football, but that feels like the type of role that Omura is going to be taking on here.
Yeah, and I think this is a another thing that we can look at and back to like the ever-changing landscape of college football. They're going to start bringing in guys like this that know more about the transfer window, know more about recruiting, that can just help and be of service to the rest of the staff, and maybe take some pressure off of the rest of the staff when they're trying to just coach a football team. So I see no problem with this hire, and hopefully he does well here at ASU. Now on to the recruits. We saw one wide receiver that ASU got a commit from, Link Rhodes. He is a wide receiver from JUCO Delta College. More of like a slot receiver, kick returner type. When you turn on the film and you look at some of the stuff that you've seen from him, Damon, what can he bring to the wide receiver group? Do you think he can compete right away, or do you think it's someone that's just a depth piece?
Burner, absolute burner. This guy is so fast. He's got a 10:59 100-meter time, which is very fast. He had a kick return for a touchdown last season, averaged 30 yards per try, had 9 of them. And I think he's just a weapon that you can use as a deep threat as well as in the kick return game. Obviously, Jake Smith and Melquan Stovall both moving on out of eligibility. They were ASU's returners last season. So I think that that's probably his best pathway to reps this season. But yeah, as we mentioned, like some of these routes that ASU likes to run where they just have like a seam route up the middle or a deep go ball, that he could totally slide in for those. I imagine he's not going to compete for a lot of the first and second or third wide receiver reps. But, as far as what he can bring from a special teams standpoint, as well as just that speed to take the top off of defenses, I think it's a big add. And obviously, getting a JUCO guy with experience helps as well, too.
Yeah, JUCO guy with experience that probably is going to have 4 years here because that's the new ruling. Again, I mentioned changing college football landscape.
Yeah.
But I think this is great just from a kick return standpoint because ASU, I thought they could have been a little bit better in the kick return area.
Special teams in general, yeah. Special teams in general, they could have been a little bit better. And so they should get somebody in that can really return kicks. And hopefully this guy can do that. Link Rhodes here. Also on the recruiting front, Caden Finley is going to be in town, a top 100 recruit in the 2026 class. It's junior day this weekend in Tempe, so he's going to be visiting, and then also a 3-star edge rusher, Landon Barnes, will be in town as well.
Yep, good to be hitting the Duncanville pipeline again. Obviously, Colin Simmons, almost a Sun Devil out of Duncanville, so getting an edge rusher later on from Duncanville there.
And then back to guys that are now on the team. ASU's highest rated 2025 signee, Cameron Dyer, had knee surgery from what we've seen. We'll have to see if when he's going to be ready. Obviously was going to compete for second team, third team reps. So we'll see what his status will be come spring practice.
Yeah, go ahead.
The photo that he posted of his knee didn't look like a great, minor procedure. It looked like a pretty significant knee injury. So I'm not
speculation, Justin.
I'm just saying from my past experiences with knee injuries. I haven't had them, but just from seeing athletes that have had knee injuries, it looks like a significant one, and so
we wish him a speedy and healthy recovery, and hope he'll be ready as soon as he's ready.
Yeah.
It sounds like the injury happened in the New Mexico State playoffs, and so he was limited the rest of that. And He was expected to compete at quarterback a little bit. Like we mentioned, at first he was going to convert from quarterback to wide receiver in that Hines Ward mold. Now we'll see what happens with his quarterback prospects, or whether he just ends up going to wide receiver because maybe that's an easier position to learn in terms of if he wants to get true freshman reps or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
now
looking at Jeff Sims again as the backup.
Looks like it, yep.
Okay.
Or good old Butter Tollefson could
a lot
climb
of
up in that depth chart.
yeah, couple guys. Now let's get back to some Cam Skattebo stuff, because it's you got Senior Bowl, you got Shamari Simmons at the Shrine Bowl. Skattebo did not participate in the Senior Bowl. He's going to be getting ready for the draft. We'll get back to him in just a second. I wanted to shout out Shamari Simmons, friend of the program, by the way. He has been lighting it up at Shrine Bowl practices, and the game will be tonight as we're speaking, Thursday night. Hopefully he does just as well as he's been doing in the practices in the game. For Cam Skattebo, though, as I mentioned, he withdrew from the Senior Bowl. Would have liked to see him play one more time with some, the ASU helmet on, but not to be. He's going to be getting ready for the draft, but something to look out for. Obviously, we've been talking a little bit about his draft prospects and where he might go, whether it's second round all the way down to fifth, sixth, seventh round. We had no idea, because a lot of people say, maybe he's too slow, maybe he's this, maybe he's that. I think he proved a lot in the playoffs, and that's been, shown as, some rankings have come out. PFF brought out their top running back rankings, and it looks like Skattebo is the third running back on that list. So that's pretty cool, right behind Amarion Hampton and Ashton Genty, Damon.
Yeah, a couple Doak Walker guys who are actually finalists for that award. Cam Skattebo's still snubbed from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it will be cool to see. Although people are saying that his speed might be an issue, I mean, he was clocked over 20 miles per hour at points this year. So we'll see how he runs at the combine. I'm excited to see. That's almost 3 weeks away, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're really getting into the spring sports calendar, like spring training soon. It's wild. I think the 40 time for him is super important, because he is a guy that a lot of NFL teams are going to love, just with his mentality.
His bench press is going to be something to watch.
The NFL is very much going back in a direction where it's like run the ball, physicality. We want violence on the field. That's something that you heard, and you hear Jonathan Gannon of the Cardinals say all the time. And so, somebody that's a violent runner,
runs like he's mad at the ground.
Right, yeah, runs like he's mad at the ground. You see guys like Isaiah Pacheco, who runs like he's mad at the ground, being major focal points in offenses these days. Saquon Barkley's Derrick Henry have kind of led the charge, I feel like, of the return of the running back. And so a guy like Cam Skattebo is going to be very much for certain teams, I feel like he's going to be very much a player that they would value. I just think that he does need to show that he's, at least 4.5 or above to get that, to get higher in the draft. I think he'll at the latest go in the 4th round. But I think we're looking 3rd, 4th round for him.
It's interesting, too, because, in terms of covering all his bases, I think Senior Bowl is maybe the thing that he could afford to skip out on, just because that's something that shows how you are in a team setting. We've seen Skattebo light it up in a team setting already, and against an incredible defense like a Texas. And so I wonder if maybe this was just a decision of, hey, they've already seen that I can do this. Now let's go and show them that I can do this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And now we've touched all of our bases on the football end of things. Now let's get into the men's basketball side.
I have one more point, too, about the Skattebo
go
thing,
ahead.
actually, real quick. Mm-hmm. It might be a good thing, too, for him to be skipping out on the Senior Bowl, because that's, another week of putting stress on your body, and then a game where he's going to get hit. And, he got a big workload. He missed a game this past year. It's hard to remember that he did, but he did miss a game, and so I think this could be good for him in the draft prospects, because he's even fresher than he could have been.
Now let's get into men's basketball. Obviously, I said that they won against Colorado 70-68. It was a nail biter toward the end. They were really good on defense in the first half. Struggled a little bit in the second half. Colorado had their runs, but
Hammond really got hot there.
Yeah. Obviously, B.J. Freeman didn't play a lot, went down in the first 5 minutes of the game. Quaintance didn't play at all. He didn't even make the trip. So we'll be waiting on their status for Saturday's game against Arizona. Damon, have you heard anything on their status yet?
Sounds like we should expect Quaintance, but we'll see about Freeman. We might hear from Bobby on Friday or might not. We'll see how it goes.
This win against Colorado, for me, is concerning because ASU needs style points, and I know that they were missing players, but like the committee's probably not going to be looking at in March which players were gone for what game in early or late January, and so
it's just not possible for the committee. Like, I understand it's not possible for the committee to pay that much attention to every single little game.
Correct.
Like 80 teams
especially a
worth
West
too.
Coast game.
Yeah.
That started at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I think that for them to, at least beat Colorado by 10, 15 points would have looked a lot better. They're beating probably the worst team in the conference by 2 points. It just doesn't look good for a resume.
I think Colorado, they started the season 8-2.
Yeah, but who are they playing?
Right. That's the thing. Like, this conference is so deep that an 8-2 team to start the season, they're going 0-9 to start the Big 12 season.
I'm just saying that a 2-point win over a Colorado team is not helping you get to the tournament.
Yeah.
I also think that there's no such thing as ugly road wins.
Okay.
I mean, I can agree with you. And, to our eye, to three people that pay attention to the men's basketball team a lot, we understand that, hey, Freeman didn't play outside of 5 minutes in this game. Quaintance didn't even make the trip. So Phillips had to, Phillips and Bashir needed to switch off at center a lot. Phillips, I think he almost played like the entire game basically in this one.
And it was incredible how he played, especially there at the end with that game-saving block.
Shout out Sean
Phillips only played 28 minutes, guys.
He's been...
I didn't even realize that. But it was Bashir that played 33, and then Mason and Miller played 39 minutes each.
And Miller probably would have played 40 if not for that blow he took in the final minute.
Yeah. We'll get to Miller in a second because
he had
I
a
was
game.
Thoroughly impressed. And again, I'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, what ASU needs to do, Jesse, I get what you're saying with the style points, but like Damon said, a win's a win.
Yeah, a win's a win for sure. And
it was a loss you couldn't have.
And I would like to just point out the fact that Sean Phillips has just been playing better in general across the last couple of games. He's a guy that's been pretty inconsistent during his time at ASU, and it seems like he's kind of finding that consistency a little bit. He looks like he's playing with more confidence out there, like just his facial expressions, body language, like he knows what he's supposed to be doing now, and
he knows he's good at it.
Yeah,
that's what matters.
I think he's like figured out. Oh wait, I'm 7 feet tall. I'm good. I'm
long. I can jump.
Yeah, exactly. And like he's figured that out, and I think it's working to ASU's benefit. And I'm not that concerned if they don't have Jaden Quaintance on Saturday, just because of how Sean Phillips has played. We'll be more concerned about the BJ Freeman thing, and then Josan's got to get going. I'm not sure he's right yet from coming back from his ankle, but 1 for 7 in 30 minutes, 2 points. That it's not been great for him recently, and I'd like to see him go off for 15 or something in this game against U of A.
Yeah, he has not been in double digits since December 3rd against San Diego.
Yeah.
And that includes games that before the ankle injury against Florida and UMass.
Obviously still concerned a little bit about the turnovers and
Still no games without single-digit turnovers.
Yeah, 17 in this one, and Bashir's 2 straight games with 6 turnovers. He had 6 against Iowa State and 6 against Colorado.
And concerned about their depth.
Yeah, I mean, and what Bashir said after the Iowa State game is he said he had to be better. obviously he had to try and do a lot against Colorado because they were missing so many bodies, but would like to see him specifically cut down on the turnovers.
And to his credit, he is a guy that gets blitzed a lot just because of his role where he's playmaking out of the mid post a lot. And so that's an easy spot where defenses can attack the ball a little bit more. But yeah, it definitely needs to be a different approach there.
Yeah. And now let's get to Adam Miller. This game is how I would like to see him play the rest of the season. He took 10 shots. I would have liked to seen him take 15. Like we said, Jesse, the other day, this team has hesitated to shoot a little too much. And I would like to see when they're open, let it fly. Because guys like Adam Miller, he has a good shot. Guys like Josan, he has a good shot. Don't try and do too much. Shoot the ball.
Yeah, get the ball, catch the ball, and shoot. It works for... That's something that they do so well in the NBA, is if you watch it, it's just quick decision-making, shoot the ball right away when they... Catch and shoot. Like, ASU could do a better job at that. But yeah, Adam Miller, he played really well against
The two missed free throws really bugged me.
Yeah,
but he did not travel at the end of the game.
That's true.
That is
we didn't even bring that up.
That almost could have cost ASU the game, and that was there were some bad calls. This game, Bobby Hurley. Sometimes I get on him for yelling at the refs too much. This game, he had the right to yell at the refs. There were some pretty bad calls against ASU from what I remember.
Let me posit a question here quick.
Please.
Taking away the moment as far as what was going on in each game and what was on the line, just looking at the calls, which was worse, the Melquan targeting or the Miller travel?
The Melquan targeting.
Miller travel because
Split decision.
because he didn't even take a step. Like,
But it was in a regular season game.
No, we're taking out what's on the line.
Oh, okay.
yeah, we're like referee blunders.
Yeah.
No,
Okay,
the
wait,
targeting
so-
was so clear.
Yeah. Okay, wait. The
He was
targeting
moving his foot around a little bit, but it was his pivot foot.
Here's the thing. Targeting, I'll go with you on targeting because they have the ability for replay on that one.
That's a good point.
It was so obviously and clearly targeting. This one,
because it was in the last 2 minutes, would they have reviewed the travel if it was called, or is that not a reviewable play?
It's not reviewable because it's not a foul. And it's not it's not like a possession.
Yeah,
like out of bounds.
Yeah, but like you would have to like rewatch it and look at his feet to be like, oh, wait a minute, he was just turning around his pivot foot and then moving one other foot, and he was fine.
Another thing to note, Trevor Best did play a minute in there as well.
He gave it his best.
He's going to keep getting the swing of things and
Hit a foul and a turnover.
hoping that he can start making an impact because obviously the depth has been an issue.
The depth is a very big issue. They played 8 players on Tuesday, and
2 of those played fewer than 5 minutes.
yeah, and they had 2 bench guys play 30 and 26 minutes, which not ideal.
Yeah. Now ASU takes on Arizona. Caleb Love probably feeling pretty good about himself after sending that game to overtime against Iowa State and then taking over in overtime for Arizona to knock off
a pretty
the
incredible
number 3
performance.
ranked Cyclones.
Yeah, he especially to have the cojones to shoot that shot, given what his field goal percentage was going into that shot on threes was.
I think he was
crazy.
1 for 12 at that point when he shot that half court one.
Yeah,
Something like that.
This would be a big tier win for ASU.
Yes, this is a team that's going to be ranked.
Must-win game?
If you want to make the tournament, probably.
If you want to make the tournament,
I hate I hate the phrase must-win game. Every game is a must-win game.
I disagree.
Okay, Wolf.
I disagree. That every game is a must-win game.
All right, fine. The Chiefs
must-win or can't
the
lose?
The Chiefs at the end of the season when
Exactly.
they already had the number 1 seed.
Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
I get
There
what
are
you're
some
saying.
games that are not must-win games.
This is a must-win game.
Arizona
think
is
so.
half game out of first in the Big 12 right now, and they're
Yes.
unranked, which
And they
I
will
think
be
is
ranked.
crazy.
They
Yeah.
will be ranked on Monday, especially if they beat ASU. But even if they lose to ASU, I could see them going into the top 25. That Iowa State team's really good. And
Yeah, they are.
They beat that Iowa State team. So
Yeah, and
UVA's completely turned their season around, unsurprisingly. I mean, good basketball in Tucson. I mean, we've shocking.
Yeah.
It's a little funny, though,
They held
because-
Curtis Jones, and that
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We also haven't mentioned this on this program, but Curtis Jones, post-game against ASU, said, I saw them showing that Big 12 championship trophy, and I didn't like that too much.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he goes around and scores 33 on 22 shots.
Some bulletin board material a little bit by
in-game bulletin board material.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, real quick before we get out of here, ASU hockey split against Colorado College. Man, that second one is a heartbreaker because they were up 4-1 in the third period, and then they gave up 4 unanswered goals to lose 5-4 in the third period to Colorado College. 5
really good periods, 1 really terrible period. I was there on Friday. They dominated that game, and then I wasn't able to watch the game on Saturday, but it looked like they were dominating that game, and then it totally unraveled at the end. So they've got to be able to hang on to leads like that toward the end of a game, because wins are hard to come by in the NCHC.
They're ranked 12th now in the one of the polls. I don't know.
USCHO.
Thank you.
That's the poll that matters.
Shout out Matthew Tkachuk, alternate captain for Team USA in the Four Nations.
Okay, what does that have to do with anything?
Arizona kid.
Oh, got it. Duh. That's right.
Austin Matthews is the captain.
He is an Arizona kid.
Very Arizona kid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's going to do it for this edition of State of the Sun Devils. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils. You can find all of Damon's articles on ArizonaSports.com and the Arizona Sports app. For Desi Morrison, Damon Allred, I'm Jeremy Schnell. We'll talk to you soon.